So in the last lecture, we have learned about the CRUD operations. We have done all the CRUD operations: create, read, update, delete, using template engine, e.g., your EJS template engine, and we have displayed some HTML pages as well. Okay. So today we are going to start with REST APIs, but before going to the REST APIs, let's cover one more topic, which is middleware, okay, which is also a required topic. Okay, so let's cover that topic first, then we will go for REST APIs. Okay, so what all basically middlewares are? Okay, can anyone tell me what is middleware in your own language? What is middleware? Yes, anyone? What is middleware? अरे इंग्लिश डेफिनेशन ही बता दो, आपको पता होगा तो कुछ तो बोलो. Hello, सर्विस प्रोवाइडर. ओके, ठीक है. व्हाट एल्स? इसको नहीं आता मिडलवेयर का मतलब? व्हाट इज द मीनिंग ऑफ मिडलवेयर? आई एम जस्ट आस्किंग व्हाट इज द मीनिंग ऑफ मिडलवेयर. पता है या नहीं पता है? कुछ तो बताओ यार. सब लोग चुप है एकदम. मीडिएटर. ओके, गुड. Same. Both of you are correct actually. So see, middleware means what? Like it sits in between the, or you can say mediator. Okay. So whatever the in our application perspective or in backend, front end, client server architecture. Okay. It's a mediator which will basically handle the request coming from your client and then pass it on to the next provider. Okay. So middlewares are like जो बीच में बैठे हैं and they will just get the input, process it, and then produce the new output for a next processing, or let's say next middleware, or let's say the end output. Okay. So middleware. So here also, when we are receiving any request, okay, for any of the, let's say when for any of the route, okay, for any of the route, when you are receiving a request, we can intercept those requests in between, and then we can perform our own logic. Okay, and then we can basically transform that data or do any operations on that data, and then we can go with the next route. Okay, so whatever the operations are performed during that period is that operations are performed by your middleware. Okay, and how do you create middleware in Express? Actually, if you see, we are actually using some of the inbuilt middlewares in our application. Okay. So whenever you see server.use, okay, server.use means like you are using some middlewares in between. So express.static is a middleware itself. Okay. What this middleware does is it basically intercepts whenever the request comes to your server, then it checks whether the request is coming for this public CSS JS folder or static folder. Whenever you write localhost colon 4000 slash static, so it will just execute this code. Okay, or let's say it will execute this static functionality. Okay, so this is the middleware. Again, this is also a middleware. Your express.url encoded. Okay, you remember when we were doing post handling? In the post handling, we were not getting the data in body, request.body. But when we introduce this line, we were able to get the data in request.body. Why so? Because This is the middleware which is intercepting in your request, and then it is getting that data from your post body and attaching that body data to your request dot body field. Okay, that's the reason you are getting the data. This is also a middleware. Okay, so we can also create our own custom middleware whenever required or wherever required. Okay, there are basically, if you divide the categories according to the position or where you place the middleware, they are divided into majorly four categories. First is application level middleware. Okay, and so for entire application, the middleware will be used. Like you can see, this is the application level middleware for entire application. Before any request, this is called. Okay, this application level middleware. Okay, even this is also a middleware, but this is not a middleware. You can see it's basically setting an engine, setting configuration, but this is a middleware, right? So application level middleware. Then you have a route specific middleware like this one, static. So for this specific static route, we have this middleware. Okay, so we can create our own custom middleware for, let's say, this static route as well, this route as well. Okay, so for any route, whenever you create a middleware, so that is called as route specific middleware. Then we have a router specific middleware. Router specific middleware, we will do it later on when we come to the REST APIs topic. We'll understand router specific middleware at that time. Then we have a error handling middlewares as well. Okay. So these are the four major categories where your middlewares are divided into. Okay. So first, let's say if I want to create an application level middleware, how do I create it? Okay, middleware is nothing but a simple function, okay, which will have three parameters. Okay, three or more parameters basically. So three parameters. So it will have both of these parameters, request and response. Along with that, it will have one more parameter, third parameter, which is called next. Okay, or you can say anything, but it's a next function. So which is the next function we are going to call? Okay, that is the next parameter. That parameter, that function we need to call whenever you want to call the next middleware or next route or next function that you want to call. Okay, so let's say we are creating one application level middleware. So I'll create a function here, const app level middleware equals to. So it's a function. So you can create a using function keyword, or you can simply create a arrow function as well. So as I told you, this middleware will have three parameters. First is request, then response, then next. Okay, this next is a function. Okay. Now here, whatever you want to do with it, you can do it. Okay, let's say I just want to print console log. Okay, in the console log, I'll print app level middleware. And after this, you need to call next. Okay, next is a function. So you need to call next. Okay, why so? Because if you don't call this next function, then the next middleware or next function, which is our next request function, which is going to be called, a listener function, which is going to be called, will not be called if you don't call this. Okay, so this is important in the middleware. That's the reason we have this third parameter. Okay, we need to call this. Okay, so where do I call app level middleware? Okay, so as I told you, app level middlewares are directly called using server.use. Okay, so if you want to use server.use, then you can directly pass your app level middleware in this. Okay, you just have to pass the reference of your middleware function, and whenever the request comes to any of the route, okay, if you to any of the route, any route you take it, okay, whenever the request comes to that route, it will first go to this middleware and then it will go to that route, okay, when the next function is called. So let's check it out whether this works or not. So I'll go to here, npm start. Our application is started. Let's go to localhost 4000. I went, and you can see in the this, you will see app level middle. This is called twice because it's for, one is for fav icon and another is for the route. Okay, so you can see this console log is printed app level middleware. Okay, so you can visit any route. Let's say I go to about page, you will see app level middleware is printed again. Okay, you can again check it out. Go to users, you'll see app level middleware is printed. So go to any route, you will see console.log app level middleware console printed. Yeah. Okay. You can check it. I'll just check this one. Okay. Whether this is called first or this is called first. Let's check. So I'll just print here log inside slash. Okay. And let's see which one is called first. So I'll go to home. You'll see first app level middleware is called and then inside slash is called. Okay. That means your app level middleware is always called first. Okay. And then this next function will call this request or this listener function. Okay. This is a listener function, right? This listener function will be called when you call this next function. If you don't call this next, you will be like hanged there. मतलब वहीं पे hang हो जाओगे. Your your request will not complete. Okay, you can just comment this and check. Okay, let's go and just refresh the page. You will see my request is not completed. You can see it's still loading. Okay, and when you come here, you will see app level middleware is printed in the console, but your this console log is not printed because you haven't called a next function. Okay, and if you haven't called it, then the next function will not be called. Okay, and that means the next listener function will not be called. Okay, and that's the reason this is required. Next function, calling of next function is required. Okay, now if you do, you will see both of them are printed here because the request is completed. Okay, so that's how your app level middleware is. So whatever thing you need to do before going to that request, okay, you can do it there. Okay, basically, let's say I want to add some, let's say, current time. I want to add current time to my request object. So I'll say request dot current time. This is not a inbuilt field in the request current time. Huh? If you want to check, I will just write comma request dot current time. Okay, and if you see, let's refresh, you will see request dot current time is undefined. Okay, now I'll just insert the value, let's say new date here. Okay. This will add current date into your current time. Okay, and when you refresh the page, you will see the current date added here. Okay, that means you can do perform any operation or anything that you want to do before going to that route. That is what actually this express.url encoded is doing. Okay, so whenever the post request comes, it's actually adding request.body, and in that body it is adding the parameters which are passed to that form. Okay, and the reason we are getting request.body object there. Okay, before adding this we were getting undefined, right? So it's like same thing that we had done. Okay, understood this app level middleware? Now this request.current time, you can access it anywhere. Like you can go to this route and you can access here as well. You can go to this route, you can access there as well. Okay, because this app level middleware is called for every route. Understood everyone? This app level middleware, how to create it. Okay, good. Okay, try it out. Then we'll see route specific middleware. Can you increase the font size? Okay, yeah, sure. Sorry. Is it done? Okay, great. What about others? Okay. What about others? Okay, good. Great. Now, so this is your application level middleware. So let's see the route specific middleware. Okay. So route specific middlewares are like one of the best example for route specific middleware. I will tell you is authentication. Okay. So if you want to authenticate particular routes, okay, like you have multiple routes in your application, right? So let's say you want to restrict some users to particular routes or particular operations, doing some particular operations, like let's say the read operation. Okay, anyone can perform read operation, anyone can read the users list. But whenever you want to create a user, that user should be authenticated. Okay, unless and until the user is authenticated, you will not be able to create the user. Okay, so you should throw some error, okay, or you should throw some error page, okay, user post, okay, then update, delete. These operations are restricted operations, and you want to perform authentication before uh, performing that operation. Okay, now you cannot do that in each and every request, right? So you cannot do it in you can do it in user create, you can do it in user get, user post, okay, user update. But what will happen is you will have to do it for each and every route every time, okay, which is like redundant. Okay. So to avoid this, you can use a route specific middleware. Okay. And this is route specific because it cannot be applied for all. Like you cannot create application level middleware. If you create application level middleware for authentication purpose, then each and every route will be authenticated. And we don't want to do that. Right? We want to give um, access for some routes without authentication, and for some routes those routes should be authenticated. Okay, in that case the route specific middleware will be the best choice. Okay, but how do you create a route specific middleware? It's again creating a middleware is the same concept that we do it for application level middleware. So it will also be a function with three parameters, and there will be a next function, the third parameter, and we need to call that next function. But in this case, you have to perform some logic. Okay, based on that logic, we will be able to uh, do the operations. Okay, so we will be able to call the next function. Okay, if the logic means if the let's say we are doing authentication, right? So let's say we have a API key. If that API key is correct, then we will call the next function. So next function we call the next listener, right? The next request listener. If the API key is wrong, it's not correct, right? Then in that case, we'll not call the next function, but we will send some response, because if we don't send the response, then it will go into the loop, right? The scenario that we just saw. Okay. So let's create that authentication layer level, or let's say route specific middleware. I'll write it here, route specific middleware. Let's call it as authenticate. Okay. Const authenticate equals to, it will be a function with three parameters: request comma response comma next. Okay. Now in this we will check if there is an API key in the, let's say when I go to the request, if let's say if I go to users page, okay, and if I go to create user, if there is a question mark API key equals to, let's say ABC123, something like this. Okay. So if we have this API key in the URL, then only we will authenticate it, or otherwise we will not authenticate it. Okay. It's just a basic scenario I'm telling you, but in a real world scenario, it will be token based, and token will not be in the queue key, but it will be in a header section. That we will do in a REST APIs. When we will see JWT authentication, that time we will see. Okay. But for now, just implement a basic scenario. So let's say now if I want to get this query, okay, this query string, so we can get it through request.query. Remember, uh, we had done it for get method. Okay, here request.query, and then from that we were getting name and age. Similarly, we can get the API key from your request.query. So write const equals to request.query, and in this we will get API key. Okay. Now if API key equals to ABC123, okay, then you are authenticated. That means we need to call the next function. If not, then else we will just display response.send. Okay, we'll say invalid API key. Okay, so we'll see invalid API key as a message. Okay, so our application is restarted. Now let's check whether this works or not. Okay, but obviously this will work because we are not using this authenticate for any of the route, right? So let's say I want, if whenever user wants to create, okay, then only I want to call this middleware. Okay, in that case, when where do we call it? Okay, because here we can say see that server.use app level middleware will be used for application level, but route specific middleware do we call this? Okay, or where do we pass it basically? So whenever you want to call application level middleware, we will pass it to that particular route. Okay, so we have a create operation here, just pass it here comma. Okay, so this get method will accept the first parameters, the route path, and after that it accepts all the middlewares and your request listener. Actually this request listener is nothing but your middleware only, but the last middleware where we don't have a next function, and this is a middlewares, okay, or like in between middlewares where we will have a next function. Okay, so here whenever you go to create operation, you have to have a API key. If you don't have a API key, then it will throw an error, or it will give me invalid API key. Okay, so application is started. Let's go and check. Now if you refresh this, you will see the page. But if I go to, let's say, users and click on create, you will see invalid API key because you don't have a API key here. But if you write API key equals to ABC123, you will see the page. If you write API key wrong, you will not see the page. It's invalid API key. Okay. And for a valid API key, you will see the page. Now go. Let's go to home page. You will see the home page is working. Go to users page. This is also working. Go to about page. Is also working because we haven't added the authentication for that particular route. Okay. So when you see create user, then you have to have API key. Okay. Then only you will be able to see. Or let's say I want to use it for update also. So update, you can see for update it is without API key is also working. So for update, what we will do, we will add the authenticate for update as well. So for this page, let's add authenticate. Okay. So if you do refresh, you will see invalid API key. Okay. Now if you add API key equals to ABC123, you see they I'm able to update the user. Okay. So that's how you can authenticate the user or route particular route. Okay, by just adding this route specific middleware in between. Okay. Now wherever you add it, only for that particular route this authenticate middleware will work, but rest of the routes it will not. Okay. So you have to make sure that whichever route is authenticated, you have to add this middleware over there. Understood? Route specific middleware. Yes. Okay. Okay. Try it out.
Sir, after I start my server, it is showing clean exit something. I'm not able to access the localhost page.
Can you show the screen?
Yes, sir.
Clean exit. And can you stop and start again? Don't just click on delete. Stop it using controls. Don't this. Exit. Just a minute. Can you show me the code? Go to the listen from where you are starting. In
Which
the
one?
code, go to the end of the file. Where is your listen function? Where is listen code for listen? On the
Okay,
port you are listening to the server, right? Where is that code?
okay, I'll check, sir.
Is it removed or have you
Yes,
not
sir.
added that code here?
No, sir. Maybe I just changed the sequence yesterday, no? So it got deleted or something.
Okay.
Because it was working yesterday
Hmm.
for CRUD functions, and today I tried, but it was giving me the same thing,
So
cleaning.
you have removed that. Means
Okay,
you
I will.
have just created a server, but you have not started the server.
Okay, I
To
will add
start
it.
the server by using server.listen. Right?
Okay, okay. Thank you, sir.
Is it done, everyone? Okay, great. What about others? Okay, only two. Others are doing it or not? Are you facing any issues, errors? Okay, okay, good. Now, this is your route specific middleware, okay, which we can call it for particular route. Okay. Now, there is one more type of middleware, which is error handling middleware. Okay. So, if you have any error in your application, okay, and if that error is not handled, then what happens if that error is not handled? Okay. Let's say when I'm trying to access, let's say this home page, okay, and let's say I'm just throwing an error here, throw new error, okay, some error. Okay. If you try to access this page, you're going to get an error. Okay. So, and you will see this page. Okay, some error occurred. Your application is crashed. Okay, because you haven't handled that error. Okay, and this can be possible. Sometimes you may dynamically go to that page and that page has some error and you're getting that error. Okay, so I will do one thing. I'll just remove it from here and I will create one page for this. Let's say server dot get. If you have a slash error page, if you goes to error page, then you will see that error. Because I don't want to now you can see the server is started. Now let's go and change. So we'll see the server is running. But if you go to slash error page, okay, your node is crashed or your application is crashed because you are throwing an error and this error is not handled. Okay, you can handle the error using try catch block. Okay, but sometimes there are some dynamic errors which are occurred and you never know what will happen. So in that case, if you handle global level error, okay, where if any error occurs, we don't want to show this page, but we want to show some page where we can say them, yeah, there is some error, please contact administrator or contact the developer. Okay, so how can you handle this errors? Okay, if there is an error, unknown error which is coming, so for that we can have error specific middleware. Now error specific middleware should be used at the end. Okay, after wildcard route as well. Okay, you have to use error level middleware at the end. So how it will be? It will be like same server.use. Okay, now this error level middleware is also accept a function. Okay, it will have, now as per we have three parameters for every middleware, but for error specific middleware we have four parameters. Okay, first one is error. Okay, if there is an error, so this error will be there in the error object. Then there is a request, then response, and then we have a next function. Okay, so we'll have four parameters. First is error. In node we have error first callback methods. So whenever there is a error, the first parameter will be in error. Okay, so error, then request, then response, then next. So we will have these four parameters, and this whenever you have these four parameters, that means it's a error handling middleware. And in entire application, you can only have one error handling middleware. Okay, you cannot have more than one error handling. You can only have one error handling middleware. Okay, and you can write a code here. Okay, whatever you want to write. Let's say I just want to print the error message here. Okay, and then I want to send some page, or let's say some method here. Let's say uh, some error occurred. Okay, something like this. Okay, so if there is any error is happening, okay, then it will go to this error handling middleware. It will print the error in the console log, and it will show you some error occurred message instead of showing this entire some page. Okay, let's refresh, and you will see some error occurred. Okay, and the error you will see it in the console log. This is the entire error. Okay, if you want to just comment it out, you can comment it and then save it. You will see, you'll not see the error message in the console, but you will see this. Okay, if you want to display some page, you can create a page here. Okay, let's say I want to create a error.ejs page. Okay, so whenever there is error, we will show this error page. I just copy and paste it here. Okay, here I'll say 500 internal server error. Okay, and some error has occurred, and save it, and we'll render that page here. Okay, so it will be, let's say, render your, which one is this, error. Okay, error.ej, so it's error. Okay, save it, and when you go and refresh your page, you will see 500 internal server error. Okay, so this will be shown. You can module beautify it. You can add some css. Okay, and you can just display this page. Okay, well, wherever you want to. Okay, if you don't want to display this but top bar for that page, you can just remove this or comment this part, remove this header part. Okay, so this part will not be displayed. It will only display this with bootstrap. And okay, it's up to you how you want to display it, but you can see the error handling middleware will handle any error if that error is not handled properly. Understood, everyone, how to handle errors using error handling middleware? Yes. Okay, good. Write it down. Once done, Pragati, this code is missing. Huh?
Sir, it is working now. I added that.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
10. Okay, great. What about others? Good. Okay, that's great. Now, okay, so we have only one middleware left, that is router specific middleware, but we will not be able to do router specific middleware now. We'll do it in the REST API section. Okay, so these are all the middlewares that you can declare, but you can see for every middleware, we will have at least three parameters. For every request response listener, we basically have two parameters, request and response. But for middleware, we have three parameters, request, response, and next. But for only for Error handling middleware have four parameters: error, request, response, and next. Okay. So yeah, so application level middleware, route specific middleware, and error handling middleware. So this is what about middlewares are. Okay, you can create middleware for any purpose. If you want to create your own custom middleware for your application level or for route specific middleware, you can create your own. Okay, like we have created for authentication. Okay. Now let's jump onto the next topic, which is REST APIs, okay, which is most important because if you go for any industry, you will find most of the applications are based on REST APIs. Okay, since nowadays the microservices architecture is more becoming more common thing, so microservices are created for using REST APIs only, where we will create REST APIs for each and every microservice, and those microservices will communicate with each other through this REST APIs. Or maybe you will have front-end application. That front-end application will call these microservices using different APIs. Okay, and that front-end application will be different application which can be built on Angular, React, or Vue.js, or any other technology, front-end technology. Okay, or it can be Android application. It can be your iOS application as well. Okay, so the REST APIs is a nowadays a common thing for every application. Later on, maybe in currently the technology is HTTP 2. Okay, but HTTP 3 is also coming. This is Web 3. Okay, in Web 3 we may have some gRPC protocol, remote procedure calls and all. So it will be much faster than compared to your REST APIs. But REST APIs is going to stay until, like, let's say, for next 5 to 10 years. So you will not, the REST APIs will not go. Okay, but you may see some changes in future where you will have RPCs, where remote procedure calls. That means you can directly call a function from your client to your server. Okay, that is called as remote procedure call, RPCs. Okay, so which is currently in process. Okay, which some of the companies, big giants, are still using that. Okay, so RPC protocol. Okay, but still it is not that mature, so the and people are not much aware of it. So but you can, for REST APIs is going to be there, and you will use REST APIs more, okay, in the industry when you go to. Okay, so first of all, you need to understand what is REST API. Okay, there are previously, like, in our days, okay, we used to have SOAP services. Okay, SOAP services and REST APIs. These are like when you want to call, when you want to communicate between different applications. Okay, let's say your client is in Angular, or your client is in React. Okay, or let's say Android or iOS application. Now your client application wants to communicate with your server. Server application is stored on somewhere in server in the cloud. Okay, and your client application is on your client's machine. Okay, it can be in his mobile or desktop, web, laptop. Okay, the Chrome browser. Okay, and he wants to access your server. Now these are like sitting on two different locations, two different machines. Okay, and also the languages can be different as well. Your client language is in JavaScript, or Android, Java, Kotlin, or iOS, Swift, or anything, Objective-C. And your backend application, a server application, maybe in Node.js, or it may be in Java, it may be in PHP, Python, .NET, okay, Ruby on Rails, anything, Golang, Rust. It can be in any language. How do you communicate with this? Because you have a different languages. And to communicate with this, we have only common way to communicate, that is by calling a URL. Okay, you can call the URL. You can have a page loaded, and in that page, whatever is printed, we can load it through your URL. Now that particular server can render a page, HTML page, or it can render data, because on front end side we only need a data. Baki, the rendering part or beautification part can be done by your front end application. Okay, that's the reason we have front end application over there. But but that front end application will only need the data. And to communicate with different clients, different servers, it needs the data, right? So the data can be transferred in various formats. Now, in our days, when we use SOAP services, that time we used to have XML as a common language, because XML is a common thing which can be understood by each and every language. Okay, a JavaScript also understand XML, a Java, .NET, Node.js, anyone can understand XML. Okay, so XML can be treated as a um, your messenger. Okay, so it transfer your data through XML. Okay, but XML has a drawback. What is the drawback is basically, when if you want to transfer some data, let's say small amount of data, if you just want to transfer, let's say student details, you have a student ID, name, email, okay, then it's a roll number and everything. Now for this kind of data, if you want to transfer it in XML, you will have, first of all, you will have a root tag. You will have tags, because XML we have tags, right? Tags, there will be a root tag, let's say student tag, and in that tag you will have a starting and ending tag. Okay, then we will have a ID tag in the inside the student tag. ID tag will also be having starting and ending tag, the name tag, start and end tag, age, start and end tag, the roll number, start and end tag, and in between that you will have the value is small, it is taking small space, but these starting ending tags are taking much space, right? So just to transfer this small amount of data also, you require some extra data along with that. Okay, which is taking space, right? And you are transferring the data through network. Okay, and in the network, you will have a lot of traffic. Your data, if it's in a huge format, if it's data, your data is huge. Okay, then your traffic will increase. Okay, your size of the data, size of the data which is transferring, which is also increase. Okay, now to avoid this, we have another data messenger, you can say, which is nothing but JSON. Okay, JSON is clean. Okay, it's an object based, where you will have a curly brace. Inside that curly brace, if you want to transfer student object, you'll have a curly brace. Inside that curly brace, just specify the key, which is in double quotes, let's say ID colon, it's ID, just value. Then you'll have name, double in double quotes, name colon, its name, double quotes, age colon, its age. So you don't have a extra data, right? Just to identify that particular value, you have a key which is taking much lesser space than your XML, right? So your size of the data also decreases. Also, your um, since the size of the data is in decrease, your network traffic will also reduce. Okay, and you will be able to transfer more data in that small bandwidth as well. Okay, and that's the reason we use REST APIs nowadays. Okay, instead of SOAP services. SOAP services are used for XML based applications. Okay, XML based transfer. But for REST APIs, we use JSON format most of the time. Some people still use XML because they have their uh, the old applications for their purpose. They need XML, but nowadays people prefer JSON over XML. Okay, now what is REST API? Okay. Now API, do you mean by API? Anyone knows what is API? API का full form मत बताना. Don't tell me the full form of API. I know that you also know that it's application programming interface. Okay. So let's say I tell you the full form of API. That's application programming interface. Still, you told me the same thing, Divya Bharti. Okay. API, application programming interface. What do you mean by application programming interface? Interface to transfer data between client and server. Correct. Okay. See, as just now I told you, like you'll have a client application, you'll have a server application. And when you want to transfer the data from client to server or server to client, there will be two different technologies sitting on both the sides, right? And they want to communicate between each other. They need to transfer the data, okay, in a common format. Now that the common format is nothing but JSON, okay. But how the data will be transferred, but how will you transfer that data to that? Suppose I want to transfer data from client to server. How will you transfer it? Okay, for that you need some function, okay, on your server side, okay, which can be called through your or which can be called by your client. Okay, collection of software functions and procedures. Correct. The software functions and procedures also. Okay. So you'll have a function. So if those functions are seated or those functions will be there in your server. Okay. Those functions will be called through some URLs, and you're just going to call that URL. Okay. Because every application, every programming language knows how to call a URL. Okay. And when they call the URL, the whatever the response is outputted by your server will be received by you, and that response you can parse it, and that response will always be in JSON format. Okay, so you can parse that response because your language knows JSON. Okay, and it can parse the JSON, it can retrieve the data from that JSON, and then we can go ahead, right? So that is what API is. Okay, so that response can be anything. It cannot be a JSON, it can be HTML, it can be anything. Okay, but that is what is your API is. API is nothing but a function which is there on your server, and you are calling that function through some URL. Okay, and that URL is basically is created by server itself. So server is giving access to that function through that URL. Okay, that function is nothing but your API. In, let's say, not even client server architecture, just you have a application of your node or Angular. When you call, let's say, array.filter function, that filter is nothing but function and is nothing but API only. Because to filter the array, you have this interface function, filter interface, through which you are filtering out your numbers or arrays or elements from that array, right? So that is nothing but API itself. Okay. So API. Now, what is REST API? Now we know API. What is API? REST API. So for that, I'll give you one site, restfulapi.net. Okay. This is the site which is created by Lokesh Gupta. It's basically he's creating from the person who has originally created uh, REST API. Okay, not Lokesh Gupta, but he's documenting all those things. Okay, from his perspective. Okay. So he has maintained all the things over here. So you will get to know what is REST, what is RESTful. Okay, everything here regards to REST is defined here. Okay, you can find everything here. Okay, so we'll just go through some of the points or some of the things from this page, and then we will see how to create our REST APIs. Okay, so first of all, what is REST? REST is an acronym from representational state transfer and an architectural style for distributed hypermedia systems. Okay, now representational state transfer. What do you mean by this? Okay, now you know HTTP is a stateless protocol. Why do we call it as HTTP as a stateless protocol? But because once you call the request, okay, and once you transfer the data and you receive the response, you receive the acknowledgement, your connection to that server is closed. And if you again want to call the server through some request, the server will not know that the incoming request is the same or not. Okay, there is no state maintained for that request. Okay, to maintain this state, we can have tokens, your cookies, sessions. Through this, we maintain the state. Okay, so this REST is basically used to transfer your state through in a representational format. Okay, it can be JSON in your HTTP status code, headers, okay, whatever it may be. So this REST is for that purpose. Okay, so to transfer data, not data, but a state. Okay, in a representational format. Okay, so it can be in properly represented format. So that is what REST is. Now, there are some guiding principles for REST. Okay, like you should have a uniform interface. Like whenever you create an API, RESTful API, the interface or URL should be uniform across your entire application. Okay. Now that means you are a resource. A resource means like whatever. Let's say you are creating API for user. So user is your resource. If you are creating API for product, so product is your resource. Okay. So whatever is noun is called as resource. Okay. So in this case, let's say user is your resource. So your resource or your API or your URL should represent directly by looking at the URL. You can say that this URL is for this resource. Okay. And when you have some methods with it, like get, post, put, delete, you can directly identify that, yeah, this URL for with this method is for this purpose. Okay, let's say user URL with get is for to get all the users. User URL with ID with get method is used to get user by ID. Okay, so yeah, this uniformity should be same across your all the resources. Like if I say users get, so it will retrieve me all the users. If you write products get, it will retrieve me all the products. If you write user slash ID and get, it will get give me user with that ID. If you write product slash ID with get, then it will give me product with that ID. Okay, so that you can see that the URL or uniformity in those URLs is maintained with the status methods, right? So that's what your uniform interface is. Okay, your messages should be self-descriptive. That means you should name your resources properly. Okay, their data which is transferring should be self-descriptive. Okay, so that is what is mentioned over here. This is the guiding principles. You'll have client server architecture stateless. Obviously your REST APIs are also stateless, but you can maintain them through tokens. Okay, so your APIs can be cacheable in the sense because sometimes your data can be huge. Okay, let's say if you are accessing a Facebook data is huge, right? So if you want to access that data each and every time, you should cache it somewhere else. Okay, because it's not going to change every time unless and until someone changes it. So some APIs can be cacheable, like you're retrieving something, it can be cached. But you are storing something, so it can be cached, right? If you're creating some user, it can be cached because once created is created, you cannot cache it. Okay. When you want to get it, you can cache it because once you cached it, you don't have to go to the database again. You can just retrieve that cache data directly. Okay, so it will be much faster than you are retrieving it from the database. Okay, so some requests can be cacheable, some requests cannot be cacheable. Right? So in the rest also we have some cacheable requests, layered system, code on demand. So this is what everything is. You can just go through it later on. Okay, I'll just highlight some important topics like what is resource. So as I told you, resource is basically is a key abstraction of information. In REST is a resource. Okay, that means if you are creating an API for particular, uh, let's say particular topic, then that topic is nothing but called as resource. Okay. So if you are creating an API for user, it will be user's resource. If you are creating API for product, then product is a resource. If you are creating a API for, let's say customer, the customer is a resource. If you are creating API for devices, the devices is a resource. Okay. So you'll have anything, the API that you create for particular thing is called as resource. Okay, and that resource we basically represent it in the URL. So that is what is mentioned here: resource identifiers, hypermedia, self-descriptive resource methods. As I told you, every resource can be accessed through some methods. Okay, so there will you most of the time these 5 methods are there: get, post, put, patch, and delete. Okay, using these 5 methods, we basically access the resource. Okay, now all these 5 methods work differently. Generally, all these 5 methods perform this all CRUD operations: create, read, update, delete, using these 5 methods. Okay. Now, generally, get is used to retrieve the information. It can be all the data. It can be just specific data. It can be filter data. It can be search data. Okay. But whatever is retrieved through get method. Okay. Post method is used to create something. Okay, if you want to create a user, if you want to create a product, then we will use post method. Okay, if put method is used to update something, update or replace something. If you want to update a particular resource entirely, okay, then we can use put method. There's also patch method which is also used to update, but patch method can be used to partially update it. Okay, so if you have a user and for user you have a name, email ID, and age. Okay, so put method can be used to update this in all the entire details like name or age and email. Okay, but patch method can be used to update only partial data like name, email, or your age. Okay. So out of this anyone can be updated, so patch can be used for that purpose. but uh, some developers prefer that put can be used, put can also be used with partial update. So it's up to the developers, or up to the developer who is creating that API. Okay, so someone prefers that, why to use patch? By using put only, I can just partially update it. So they use put. Okay, but REST API, REST of your documentation says that you can use put to update or replace the entire data, and patch is used to partially update it. Okay, okay, so it's up to us, but okay, whichever you want to use. So get, post, put, patch, and last one is delete. Okay, delete is used to delete that particular resource. Okay, you can delete a particular resource, or you can delete all the resources by passing some IDs with that resource. Okay, or some data with that resource. So this is resource methods. Okay, then REST and HTTP are now same, and summary and everything. Okay, so this is what your REST is. Okay, now there are some constraints to the REST as well. Okay, like architecture and constraint and all. So we can go through this. Okay, I'm not going through everything. Naming REST resource is also important part. Okay, so if you have a resource, let's say customer. Okay, now if you want to create an API for this customer, so you will create, most of the time whenever you want to create an API, your API should have a plural of your resource name. So if you have a customer, your API will have customers. If your API is user, your URL will have users. Okay, if you have device, then it will be devices. Product, then products. Okay, so whichever resource that you use, you should always use a plural name for that. Okay, that's just a naming convention, but it's up to you. Okay, but I would recommend go with the naming convention. Okay, because it will be easier for you to implement others APIs as well, or integrate other APIs as well. Okay, other people's API, other projects APIs. Okay, so the collection and sub collection of resource, like collection, singleton and collection resource, like you can use customers to get all the resources, and you can write customer slash customer ID to get that particular customer. Okay, now collection can have sub collection as well, like resource can have sub resource. Okay? Like let's say you have a customer, and that for customer you have accounts. Okay, now if you say customers slash customer ID slash accounts, then what this will do is, it will retrieve all the accounts for that particular customer. Okay, all the accounts, like savings account, your um, whatever account, demat account and everything account. So all the accounts will be retrieved through this URL. Okay, so any resource can have sub resource. So this sub resource can be accessed through this. Okay, now if you want to access just one account from all those accounts, you can use customer slash customer ID slash account ID. So what it will do, it will retrieve account, that particular account with account ID for that particular customer. Okay, with customer ID. Okay, the sub resource can be accessed like this. Okay, and URI is nothing but your URL, URI uniform resource identifier. Okay, best practices are given here. Okay, so you can have device management, manage devices, everything, like everything is explained here. Okay, you can go through this. Okay, and you will come to know, like you should not use slash at the end. Okay, and also just for readability. And when you want to differentiate between two words, always use hyphen. Don't combine them. Okay, because it will be much readable when you use hyphen. Those don't use underscores. Okay, underscores are not readable in the URL. Okay, hyphens are much more readable. Okay, use lowercase. Always try to use lowercase. Don't use uppercase in URL. Everything is converted to lowercase, so better to maintain lowercase. Okay, don't use file extensions as well. Okay, use directly a URL, because file extension will basically expose your API, what your API is going to return anything. Okay, so don't write extensions. Okay, and never use CRUD function names in URLs, because they will tell you what that particular URL is doing. Okay, so never do that. Okay, like If you want to get, use the get method with the resource name. Don't use get all devices, something like this. Okay. Use query components like question mark and all, which we have done. So this is what the naming convention is. Okay. Now let's see the different things like your HTTP methods. Okay. Now, as I told you, we have five HTTP methods which are important: get, post, put, patch, and delete. Okay. Now here they have mentioned which method can be used and which method can return what type of response. Okay. So if you have a get, you can respond return 200 status code with OK. Now if the resource is not found, you can return 404 not found. If the request has some not a properly formatted request, then you can say bad request, 400 bad request. Okay. Example it has given here. Okay. We can have HTTP post, okay, which can be used to create. Okay. Now this get is mostly a cacheable request because we can cache the whatever the data is returned. Okay. So get is always a cacheable. Post cannot be cacheable because you are creating a new resource, right? So it is not cacheable. Okay. Now in post, basically you can return 201 response which is created, or if you don't want to return 201, you can return 200, or you can okay, or you can say 204 no content if there is no content to be returned. Okay. So this the responses that you can return. For put, we are updating. This is also not cacheable because you are updating the resource. So here, if you are creating a resource input or replacing a resource, we can say 201 created. Or if you're just modifying it, updating it, you can say 200 okay or 204 no content. There is nothing to return. Okay. Delete can be used to delete the resource. This is also not cacheable because we have deleted what are going to cache. Okay. So we will use delete, and here we can have 200 okay, or we can say 202 accepted. And 202 accepted can be used when you have to delete lot of things and it can't be deleted in one go. Okay, it will be deleted in some point of time. Right? If you have, let's say, if you are deleting your Facebook account, now Facebook account cannot be deleted immediately because when you are deleting Facebook account, the for the post, your images, albums, galleries, whatever is linked to your account is going to be deleted, and it cannot be deleted immediately. It will take some time to delete it. Okay, so when you delete a Facebook account, Facebook doesn't tells you that it will be deleted immediately. It will be deleted after, let's say, till 30 days. Okay, it gives you grace period as well. So after 30 days it will be deleted, so you can just say that it is accepted for deletion. It will be deleted in but some point of time. Okay. So that's what 202 accepted is. 204 no content means you don't have anything to display, anything to return now. So there is no content whenever you delete it. A patch can be used to make a partial update. Okay. So in this case also we can return 200 something like this. And here they have mentioned where can be used in which function, which method. Okay. And yeah, this is what your HTTP methods are. Now these are HTTP response codes. So most response codes are basically divided into five parts, five categories. One is 1xx, which is informational. So if you want to just return some informational data, so we can use 1xx. 2xx is generally used to successful response. 3xx is mostly used for redirectional purpose. 4xx is used for client because if you have any client side error, 4xx can be used. If you have server side error, you can use 5xx error. Most of the common errors are status codes they have mentioned here. 100 continue. These are informational. We mostly don't use this. But you can see 200 okay. Okay, then 201 created, 202 accepted, 203 non-content, 204 no content, 206 partial content. Okay, so we have the 200 successful. 300 is for redirectional. So we'll have moved permanently. Okay, found, not modified, temporary redirect, permanent redirect. Okay, this type of. Now 400 will have, you will find lot of 400 error codes because client is, you can see that client can use do lot of errors. Okay, So you can see bad request, unauthorized, 402 payment required, 403 forbidden, 404 not found, 405 method not allowed, okay, not acceptable, request timeout, conflict, length required. So we'll have lot of errors here, okay, in client side. So we can, based on the condition, based on the errors, we can display appropriate response. Facts error codes are generally when the error is from the server side. So internal server error, not implemented, bad gateway, service unavailable, gateway timeout. Okay. So these are some most commonly used error codes. Okay. Some of them have been explained here. You can go through them. Okay. But this is what your HTTP status codes are, and you can use them according to the situation or error, whatever you want to give it. Okay. This is what your REST APIs are. Okay. So if you now using this resources, resource methods, and your resource, how many type of your APIs you can create? Okay. So let's take an example. So let's see, I have a user resource. Now for user resource, how many APIs I can create using the resource methods? Okay. So let's say for if you are using get method for slash user. Okay. So this can be used, okay, to get all users. Okay. If you use get with slash user slash, let's say, uh, I'm just using curly brace user ID. Okay, you can write 1 2 3 4 whatever. This can be used to get user by ID, okay, or user ID. If you use get slash users slash search, okay, so this can be used to get all users matching search criteria or search filters, okay, whatever it is, search parameters, let's say search parameters. So we can have, let's say, get with slash users slash, let's say, user ID slash addresses. Okay. So this can be used to get all addresses of user with ID with user ID. Okay. So you can get all the addresses of user with user ID. And we can also have the same thing with slash address ID, okay, which can be used to get address with address ID, okay, of user with user ID. Okay. So these are the all, you can see that just by using one uh, get method, okay, and the resource users, we can create 5 APIs, okay, just by using get. Okay. Now let's see the post. So if you use post with slash users, okay, this can be used to create a user. Okay. So to create a user, you can use post and slash users. Now we can also use post with, let's say, users slash user ID slash addresses. Okay. Now this will create an address for user with user ID. Okay. So this will create an address for this particular user. Okay. Now this is what your post can do. Okay. We can have now put can be used to user slash user ID. Okay. Here we need ID, user ID, because we are going to update a particular user, right? So we cannot just have slash users. We can have users with user ID. This will update or replace user with user ID. Okay. So can be used for that purpose. We can have patch now. Now patch can be used. user slash user ID. The same thing, but the method will be different. This can be used to partially update a user with user ID. So patch can be used for this purpose, and we can have delete with slash user ID, where this will delete and user with user ID. Okay. Now we can also have delete with slash user ID with, let's say, slash addresses. If you write like this, then it will delete all addresses of user with user ID. Okay. So if you want to delete all the addresses of this particular user, then we can use this resource. Okay. We can also write user slash user ID slash addresses slash address ID, but that is as good as writing delete addresses slash address ID. Okay. It's as good as writing deleting that particular address only. Okay. So it's no need to use delete user slash user ID slash addresses slash address ID. Okay. But these are all the APIs that you can create. Okay, and you can see that for single URL, okay, for let's say for slash users, if you use get, you can get all users. For slash users, if you use post, you can create a user. Okay, but with slash users and user ID, if you use get, you'll get user by ID. If you use slash users with user ID and put, you'll update or replace it. If you use patch, partial update it. If you use delete, it will delete user. That means you can see that you can utilize the same URL with different methods, and we can implement the functionality. Okay, and with the method and the URL itself, you can just identify what that URL or what that API is going to do. Okay, so that's how, like, we can have other, like, these are just the CRUD APIs, CRUD operation APIs that I have told you. You can have as many APIs as you want. Okay, but your API should be self-descriptive. Okay, they should tell you what this API is going to do. Okay, just based on the method and the URL. Understood this REST API? And okay, sure. Everyone, yes, yeah, good. Okay, so that's what your API or RESTful APIs are. Okay, now let's see how we can implement the REST APIs in our Express application. Okay, so what we are going to do is we will create similar kind of APIs, like we have users. Okay, the creator is users API, and here we'll create a simple basic application. Okay, let's call it as a medical store. Okay, so it will be application which will sell medicines. Okay, and here we will have users, medicals. Okay, medicines. Okay, medicines as a resource, users as a resource. Okay, and also if you want to create a medicine, you'll have to be an authenticated user. Okay, then if you want to buy, if you want to have a customer. So these all functionalities will do that in the REST APIs. Okay. And it will be purely REST API based, or there won't be any UI. Okay, so we are going to just create APIs here. Now these APIs can be consumed in your front-end application directly. Okay, and I'll just tell you at the last how you can consume it in any of the application. If you have a front-end application, if you want to consume it, how we can consume it. Okay, just you have to call that API, and for that we have to do one more thing over there. So we'll do that, okay, at that time. But for now, we are going to create a separate application. We are not going to do it in the same application. We are going to create a separate application, but we will be needing all of these things. Okay, whatever we have done in server.js, we will be needing all of those things. Okay, and now you can see that we are using this user resource. Okay, but this is just in memory data. So I will do with in memory data only for now, but later on we will introduce MongoDB, and then we will see how we can do the same things with MongoDB, but in that in the REST APIs. Okay, and the same concepts can be used here as well. Okay, so if you want to integrate MongoDB in your this application with template engine or application, you can do that. Okay, the same functionalities over there. Okay. But we will do it in REST API. Okay, because that is most important for us. So I'll stop the code here. So this is Express demo is done. Now let's see the other application. So I'll just do cd dot dot. I'll create a application here itself. I'll name it as, let's say, mkdir, just to make a directory. Okay, or let's do it in this way. Just create a folder, not in this. Here, I'll create a folder. Let's name it as, I'll name my application as, let's say, MediServe. It's a medical application. It will serve the medicals. Okay. So name it as MediServe. Okay. And we'll create express-based application to this. Okay. So I'll open this MediServe in a separate VS code. So I'll write code MediServe. So it'll open in a separate VS code workspace. Okay. Now I want to not able to hear properly. Acha, Johara. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to create a separately here. Here we will create a server and everything. So let's start from the scratch now. Okay, you know what the things we have to do. We have done this in past as well. So first of all, we want to create it as a application, express application or npm based application. So first we will init it, npm init dash dash yes. Okay, so this will create a package.json file for us. Okay, which is test this. Now we will add all the required code inside this. So first let's create a server.js file. Okay. And we need packages. So first let's install all the packages. Let's see what all packages we'll require. We can check it from the our express.json. So we'll require Express and require NodeMon. We don't require EJS because we were using template engine over there, but now we will going to be using EJS. We'll be using Express and NodeMon. And NodeMon as a dev dependency, Express is a production dependency. So we'll install npm I Express first. Express. Okay. And then we will write npm I -d NodeMon. Okay. So both of them are installed. Now let's write a script here for start. Like NodeMon the server.js, and let's change it to server.js main file. So this is my package.json file. Okay, now let's go and create our server. Okay, you know how to create it. This is our server.js file. Okay, I'll just copy this and paste it here. Everything is going to remain same. Yes, I'm just copy pasting it here. Now we won't be needing any static files, but still if you need it, we'll copy it here. Okay, because we won't be using any CSS or JavaScript, but sometimes you may need some images or video files. So I'll create a public folder for that purpose, public, which can be used for images and everything. Okay, later on we will use uploads and all, so that time we will use this. Okay, now this is required, this URL encode is required when you want to submit a data through JSON format. But if you want to upload as well, we'll need this. So I'll copy this entire thing here and I'll uncomment this one. Okay, because this we are going to create a REST API, and REST APIs will be do JSON calling. Okay, so we'll need this express.json. Otherwise, we won't receive a data when we submit a data using post method. Okay, So we'll read this. EJS, we won't be needing this because we won't be doing this. Application level middleware, just skip it, just skip this part. Authenticate, I will skip this as well because later on we will be using GWT authentication. That time we will create separately authentication middleware and we will use it there itself. Okay, so it will be a logic will be different, so I'm not copying this. Okay. Let's copy this one just for just to create a simple API. Okay, let's not copy it as well. I'll copy this users array. Okay, because we will be needing this users array. For now, we will replace it with database later on. Okay. And rest of the stuff. Okay, I'll copy this wildcard route because we'll need a wildcard route if there is an error. And error handling middleware. If you need it, you can copy it. So let's copy it. Okay, let's keep it. Okay. Now here I'm going to run it on a port, and port is created here. Okay. Now this is just a copy pasted code from there. Yeah, I'll remove the commented part. Okay. In this, see, we are not going to render anything because we have removed the template engine part, so there won't be any rendering. Okay, then what are you going to do? So I'll just comment this for part for now. Okay, even this I'll just remove this. Okay, and I'll create a simple API and let's see how we can display JSON data here. So server dot use, or no, it's a get. Okay, so it will be slash. For this we will be using request and response, and it would return us response dot JSON. Okay, response dot JSON. Okay, now in this we can write a body. Here, well, let's say I write message colon hello medicine. So here our API is ready. Let's check it out. I'll do npm start. Okay, and let's go and visit our localhost colon 4000, and you will see message data. Okay, this is your JSON formatted or JSON output data. Okay, message hello medicine. Okay, so this is just a get API. Okay, now from here onwards we are not going to use a browser because in browser we can only use get method, and post method can be used when you have a forms, and we won't be having a forms here. Put, patch and delete methods can't be called from this. Okay, directly from browser we can call it through a jax methods or not, but that is a different part. That's a client specific part. But for now we will be using postman for to handle or to test all these APIs. Whatever the APIs that we will create, we will be using postman. Okay, so just for testing purpose we have created a simple API and we have displayed a JSON formatted data here. Okay, now is everyone understood? Just a basic API how we can create it. Now here also for wildcard route and this error route, we are not going to render anything. We are going to return a JSON. Okay, so in this I'll write let's say if you don't want to return anything, for you just want to return a status, we can just do send status here, send status. Okay, so it will just return a status, it will not return any JSON data. Okay, if you go to any route which is not there, it will send not found. Okay, but the status code will be 404. You can inspect it and check it in the network tab, refresh, you will see status as 404 and not found. Okay, now this is like a simple send status. Okay, for error handling we can send status. Okay, let's say 500. Okay, so if there is an error, let's say I throw an error here. So new error. Okay. And if you go to this page, you'll see internal server error. Okay. So this, if you directly send status 500, it will show you internal server error. Okay. Now, whatever things you want to handle it here, you can just handle it here. Okay. But rest of the stuff will be handled. Understood? This is a simple API. Now, from here onwards, we are going to create all the CRUD operations for our resource. Okay, that is user. So we got our users resource here. So we just copy pasted it here. And from here onwards, we'll be creating all the APIs. Understood, everyone? So let's create this first and then write all the APIs. Okay, whatever we have discussed now. Okay, so I'll just copy this one and I will close this and let's create here. Paste. Okay, do this. Once done, let me know. We can move ahead. Then, okay, good. Hmm. What about others? Good. Okay. Okay, we'll wait. Let us know. Then you're done with the lesson. Okay, good. Okay, so let's do or let's first see how to call the same API in your Postman. Okay, and to do that, you have to download Postman first. Okay, I already have a Postman downloaded on my machine. So go to Postman and download Postman for your operating system, whichever your operating system is. Okay, so I have Mac. So once you download it, okay, open the Postman. Okay, it will ask you for login and sign up. There is an option to skip it. Okay, there is a small line later over there. You can just skip the signing option. Okay, or creating the account option. You don't need to create or sign the option. Okay, now once you open it, this will be this is how it will look like. Okay, your application will be. So here you will find the get okay, this is the method you can specify here: get, post, push, patch, delete. You will have a lot of methods here. Okay, here you will specify the URL. Okay, this is a params authorization. Headers, you can pass headers here. Here you can pass body. Okay, settings and all will be there, and you can send the request. So once you send the request, you will receive the response in the bottom section. Okay, so I just want to call this API, so I'll copy and paste this here. Okay, now we know my API is localhost colon 4000 and it's slash. Okay, so it should show me this JSON formatted data. Okay, and my method used is get. Okay, so this is a get method we are using, right? So if you use get method and this URL and send, you will see the response like this. I'll just increase the font. Okay, so you'll see the response like this: message hello medicine. Okay, and this is the formatted output, and you will see the status as 200. Okay, so by default the status is 200. Okay, and if you call any API, okay, which is not existing, since we are handling that API here wildcard route, and we are sending 404 not found. So if you just send it, you will see not found and the status will be 404. Okay, so that's how you can call an API, okay, in Postman. Okay, understood. Let's create one API for our users, okay, where we will get all the users, and let's see how that users API we can see it in the Postman, or call that users API in Postman. Okay, So I'll just create one API, server dot get. So it will be slash users, comma. Just remember, for to get all the users, we are using this URL. Okay, and the method will be get. So it will be get slash users. This request, comma response, okay, and then we just have to send all the users. So it will be response dot JSON and just pass all the users here. Okay, we already have users, just pass all the users. Okay, our API is ready. Let's go and check with slash users. If you get, you will see all the users here with JSON formatted array and object, array of objects. Okay, this is just to get all users. Now let's create one more API to get user by ID. So you'll have to write get method with slash users, and this ID will be dynamic. Okay. So if you remember, to create a dynamic ID, we write get and then slash users slash colon ID. We write a placeholder colon. Okay. And then we write request response. And how can we get this ID? We can get it using request.params. Okay. This will give me all the parameters, dynamic parameters, and we can get ID here. Now, based on this ID, we can find the user. Okay. So let's find the user. So user equals to users dot find. So it will be u dot id equals to. Now we know ID is going to be a string, so we have to convert it into a number. So it will be plus ID. Okay. Now it will return me user if the user is not found. Okay. So if you found the user, we will return response.json as user. Okay. So we will return user. Else, we are going to return response.status as 404 and JSON as message colon, let's say, user not found. Okay. So we'll say if the user is not found, we'll return the status as 404. By default, this is status is 200. Okay, if you don't specify status, it will be 200. But if you specify 400, then you can send the message with it or data with it in JSON format, means user not found. Okay, so let's see whether this works or not. So we have a users API which will return me all users. So we have a ID 1, so slash 1. So you will receive a user with ID 1. Slash 2, you will receive a user with ID 2. Slash 3, you will see user not found and your status will be 404 not found. Okay. If you use 1 here, you will see status is 200. Okay. Okay. That's how your API can be created. See how easy it is. Just to create a basic API, we have just created 2 APIs for this resource. Understood? And this is what we already have done this. The logic we have already done. We just have to return the data in JSON format. In our previous case where we were using EJS template engine, we were just rendering the page, but now we are just returning the data because the uh, server now will only care about sending the data. It will not care about how to display that data because that displaying part is done by your client. The client will take care of that. So we just want to send the data, and this is how you can send it. Understood, everyone? How to create the data and how to call it. Do it, and then we will stop it here. Rest of the APIs will create it tomorrow. Okay, like create, update, delete. Do it. Once done, let me know. Okay. So this is what Postman is, and this is what how you create a API. I'll stop the recording.